Have you watched any episodes of Unlocked, the new series on Netflix that shows the Pulaski County Regional Detention Facility? So I said that I would watch the episodes one by one and give you, I don't know, sum them up, give you an opinion on it, whatever it is. So I believe that there are 8 episodes. They just came on Netflix today. I have watched one of the episodes, the first episode. In this first episode, the sheriff of Pulaski County goes into the jail and he's like talking to the members of the board, whatever it is. They're like discussing how they're going to do basically unlock. They're going to allow the inmates in one pod to become a community. They're going to take them from 23 hours a day of being locked up to just having their doors unlocked completely. So Sheriff Eric Higgins, he says, his name is on the line, and I fully believe that. I think that in this first episode, the impression that I get is that he is just someone who is trying to, I don't know, give it a shot at treating people in jail like they are people and letting them govern themselves because he understands that something has to change. That's just my impression. Feel free to share with me what it is that you think. So only like the very end of the episode actually has the doors unlocked. They unlock the doors and the episode basically just cuts. Everything before that is preparation for unlocking the doors. And also you're getting to know a few people that are in the Pulaski County Detention Facility. There are 2 guys. I only caught the name of one of them. His like nickname is Eastside, and he's got another guy in a cell with them. They're like morons. They're morons. And they're talking about how they caught in a shank fight with each other, but they seem cool with each other. They're basically running hustles and doing tattoos and stuff. Whenever the sheriff announces that they're going to be unlocking the doors, these 2 are like unlimited tattooing. There's another guy in there. His name is Randy Randall. He goes by True Story, and he is like, I don't know, the janitor of the pod. I don't know what they're actually called, but he's like doing trays and mopping, stuff like that during the episode. Now, it seems like Randy Randall is excited about the prospect of the doors being unlocked. He goes to several like older people that are in the pod and says, like, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. It seems like he's trying to organize this community, but so many of the people are not willing to organize. And look, I've never spent any significant amount of time in jail. I cannot tell you how jail works. I know, like, I have some understanding just by kind of watching shows like this that it's a different environment in jail. There are things that happen in jail that people on the outside cannot probably ever understand, like how disrespect isn't tolerated. And if you disrespect someone or steal from someone or something like that, like you're going to have to fight or something. I don't know, but it's just things like that. Like there are rules in jail because you cannot allow for someone to disrespect you that aren't necessarily rules on the outside. And there is a fight that happens in this episode too, behind like a little bit of disrespect. So my overall impression of this episode is I feel like I want to take back everything I said about maybe this is a good idea. I don't really get the feeling that this is a good idea, honestly, because even some of the inmates that are in this pod are concerned about what's going to happen and think that they cannot be responsible for governing themselves. They think that immediately someone's going to blow it. It's going to all be over with. Everybody's going to be upset and angry. There's going, just all these things that are going to be happening within the pod. They're concerned and don't feel like it will work. They think that it's just basically the sheriff setting them up for failure. That's the opinion of some of them. And like, look, I said in my last video about it, I don't think that jail as it is right now works. It doesn't help people to be decent citizens on the outside. It doesn't give them tools where they feel like they can be anything. It's just a stopping point for criminals and a revolving door for a lot of them. But I'm pretty concerned about what's going to happen with this series. Now, I will probably not watch another episode until tomorrow. I don't know. When I do, I'll make a video about it. I'll have to, or I'll get them mixed up. But I do want to share one thing. Like, one guy in the episode said that his grandma told him, keep your hands to yourself, keep your feet on the ground, and keep your spit in your mouth. And I think that those are words to live by. Anyway, like I said, if you have watched this first episode, what is your opinion? What do you think about unlocking the doors and letting people in one single pod, lead themselves, govern themselves? I think, honestly, it would probably work more if it were people that were in on lower level offenses, but these are like felons. These are people, I looked up a few of them that were in the episode. All three of them, I believe, that I looked up were sentenced to time in prison. One of them is still in prison. Two of them have got out. And one of those is already in trouble. I mean, these are people that have been in and out of jail on their way to prison. There are more serious offenses that they have done. Oh, and I should say, a couple of days before they unlocked the doors, they did a shakedown, but I don't know. I feel like that should have been done like immediately and then unlock the doors, because you've given them like a couple of days to make more things. We'll see if my opinion changes, though. I watched episode 2 of Unlocked, a gel experiment, so let's talk about it. Spoiler alert, if you don't want anything to be spoiled for you, you probably want to scroll. So if you don't know, Unlocked, a gel experiment is a Netflix series. It has 8 episodes. It's on the Pulaski County Regional Detention Center, and a experiment that they did trying to unlock the doors in one single pod and let the inmates basically be a community and govern themselves. So I said at the very end of episode 1, that's when they unlock the doors. So episode 2 is the first actual episode where you get to see the doors being unlocked and the inmates running things for themselves. And honestly, I don't feel like they did a bad job in this episode. I have only watched the first 2 episodes because if I watch further than that, it will cloud my judgment, on this episode. So I have to do like an episode at a time. So yeah, this first episode of it being actually unlocked, they don't do a terrible job. Now you do see like the group of older inmates and the group of younger inmates kind of sticking to each other. The older inmates are sticking with themselves, the younger inmates sticking with themselves. I spoke about a guy named Randy Randall in the first episode. He's in the second episode a lot too. It seems like he wants for things to run smoothly, and he's like, we got to do XYZ. That's how things are going to run smoothly. And the younger inmates are like, don't tell us what to do. That's not how gel works. We will figure it out ourselves. A fight does break out at the end of the second episode. Now, in that fight, they're like battling this guy, fighting with this guy. I hate fights. I really do. It just makes me like nauseous for people to be in physical fights like that. But they get in a physical fight because this older guy is like obnoxious toward everyone else and disrespectful. So they go in the cell and they like battle it out, it looks like. Throughout the episode, you can see like they are being watched on cameras. They're watching, they're not seeing the fighting obviously in the cell, but they are watching what's going on in the, major part of the pod and making sure that things are running smoothly and how they're going to be a community by themselves. Now of course, the jail staff does bring in like food. They do come in for med call. The sheriff does spend quite a bit of time talking about how he grew up in the Little Rock area, how, he enjoys being a part of the community basically, and the recidivism rate there in the jail is out of control, which it's that way for a lot of county jails. Now, it does seem like to me that he has done a little bit of homework on the matter. He didn't just pull this idea, out of the top of his head. According to the sheriff, he says that he looked at other countries and how they have their jail system, that they're set up more for reform than for, punishment, and that they have systems in place where the inmates are more free than they are in the United States, and it turns out to be more successful in some countries. So he's basically saying that that's where he got this idea from. I don't disagree that this works in other countries. The thing is that I think that in other countries, those people grow up within those jail systems, within the laws of and rules of that country, the moral values in that country and the United States is just not the same. Now, I do hope that this experiment works because jail does not work. All in all, so far, I am pleased with how they are kind of like running things. Now, one thing I did see is that they're still trying to do meals how they did them when they were locked up 23 hours a day. And I think that that's probably going to be an issue, but so far it's working. They don't love that that's still what's happening. The inmates in there, a lot of them don't love that that's still how it's being done, but the older people feel like that's how it needs to work because that's how it's always been done. And so this may be an issue in the future with how well this works because the older inmates feel like this is how things have always been done. This is how I need to do things, but they're not changing their minds around to think we're doing something that has never been done. And so we need to find a new way to do things and to make things work. Also, did anyone see the nipple grab between Eastside and his cellie? It's just weird. Those two are so odd to me. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? But another thing that I noticed is that the younger people are like wanting to take their shirts off. They're wanting to like run around and be wild and not really follow the rules of the jail. And, you know, the older people bring up like, hey, there are still rules. We are still in jail. We have to abide by these rules in order for this to work. So I don't know. Anyway, based on episode 2, if you guys watched it, what is your opinion? I have watched episodes 3 and 4 of the new Netflix series Unlocked, a Jail Experiment that is on the Pulaski County Regional Detention Facility. So let's talk about it. If you have watched this far, what do you think? So the whole point of this series is that the sheriff in this county, Pulaski County, is trying to do something different by giving the guys in one single pod a chance at, I guess, some freedom. So they went from being locked up 23 hours a day to being locked up none at all. And I was surprised in the 3rd episode about how well everything seemed to be going. So in the 3rd episode, he introduced commissary. Commissary can be dangerous to jail because in a pod because inmates tend to use it as like money and trade it for things. If you got a soup, like a ramen soup from another person and you didn't pay them back on commissary day or whatever, like it's going to be a problem. Stuff like that. And now the inmates did start like making a lot of more hooch and stuff like that. So they were getting drunk, but they weren't doing anything too crazy and they weren't on the camera. They weren't, on the cameras where the sheriff could see them, where the deputies could see them doing those sorts of things. One guy, Miller, the guy that was seen getting in a fight at the end of the 2nd episode or whatever, it wasn't actually a fight because he didn't hit the person back, but he got hit at the end of the 2nd episode. He is seen on camera making a shank and they come and pull him out like with a quickness. And honestly, when I was watching him do this, be out visible, trying to make this shank, I thought to myself, like, why is he out in front of everyone doing this? I do think that he probably was trying to be pulled out of that pod and it worked. So commissary didn't go too bad. And then in episode 4, the sheriff introduces free phones for the inmates in this pod that they can have unlimited use of the phones. Now, if you don't know, if you've never talked to anybody who was in jail, phone calls from jail are very expensive. And if they don't have money on their phone or in their account to pay for the calls and the people that they're calling don't have money to pay for those calls, they can't make those calls. But the sheriff gives them free calls because, like he says, you know, if they're getting to talk to people on the outside, then it's going to help them be more positive. Now, like he did say, you know, unless they're getting bad news on the outside, and then that's going to cause problems in here, which it kind of happened. A person, he didn't get bad news, Tiny. He didn't get bad news, but he got like, he wasn't able to get his son on the phone, and that caused a lot of like anxiety in him, which came out in the way that he was speaking to other people. He was very short and almost got in a bit of an altercation himself. So that kind of did happen. But at first, whenever there's free phones, it's like a free for all, right? Everybody is just descending on these phones, but they do end up coming up with a little bit of a system for the phones so that the guys aren't like fighting over the phones. So far, all of that has happened and they've been able to get through it, but I can see cracks appearing, more cracks than before. Now, I have mentioned in my previous like reviews or whatever of the episodes that the young guys don't want to do what the older guys are wanting to do. They're not wanting to be told what to do. But in the fourth episode, I really see the young guys like start to, I don't know, I want to say like rise up. It seems like they're starting to take responsibility. They're starting to like calm things down when the older guys are like starting to fight, you know? So it was good to see that, I think. But one of the people that I've talked about in other episodes, Randy Randall, I'm starting to see a lot of issues with him. My opinion is that he's just like likes for things to be his way. And if he's not, he's like, I don't know, almost being a shot caller, even though he doesn't want to be called a pod boss. And they're saying, like, they keep saying there's not a pod boss. It kind of seems like he's being a little bit of a pod boss, a little bit of a shot caller. Like when he has had problems with people in literally like all four episodes, he is having things done. He's like having people go to the inmates that he's having issues with and get in fights so that he's not getting his hands dirty. And I think like I just ignored the red flags, right? Much like my, ignoring red flags in relationships and stuff. It was easy for me to not see the red flags in him, but now it's like becoming more obvious that I think that Randy Randall is going to be more of an issue than I thought before. Whereas some of the younger ones that I've seen in other episodes that I thought like they're probably going to be issues. In episode 4, not so much of an issue. So I was pleasantly surprised. We will see. I plan on watching the other episodes this weekend. I probably will combine them. There's 4 episodes left. I believe there's 8 episodes. So I'll probably do a review on 5 and 6 tomorrow, 7 and 8 the next day, and be done with it. But I am interested to see how this goes.